the real starting point for her was her own backwoods. Her father had a farm on the Grand River south of Lansing, and she used to play as a child in the woodlot in the back 40, which had a brook through it that went down to the Grand River. Electric utilities in the teens were building dams on just about every river they could in Michigan to make electricity. And they came to her father and other people on the river near them and said, we want to build a dam, we need to cut your woods down. And her father said, no. But finally, I guess they really pressed him and the neighbors agreed, and he finally agreed and they cut the woods down. But they never built the dam. And she, from that point forward, understood when you lose a natural feature like that, you don't get it back. And so her entire life, really, apart from her private work, and I would say she split her life in terms of her time in half. Half went to Albion College and West Acres and Ferris State College and a plethora of private houses that were associated with people she met in those places and architects and so on that she met through those years. The other half was work on parks. The work on gardens and the institutions was for pay. All of the work that she did for all these organizations that she was part of and led on behalf of parks was for free. And I think probably that totaled somewhere near 100,000 hours in her lifetime. From age 22, when she went to work for Jensen, who was seriously into parks in Illinois, and into also, as you were well aware, spawning what's still a powerful interest in natural features. She really got the message from Jensen and the whole group of scientists that she, thanks to being in Ann Arbor and East Lansing, got connected with, that really wanted to go out and try to protect the best natural features in Michigan, long before people were really thinking about this, long before conservancies and all these things that are done as a matter of course today was really, they were really inventing the wheel back then. But what she did was organize. In any given point, she would lead or start or be a driving force behind some or a number of organizations that then would be a core for political action. Two parks that she really had a lot to do with. Two really unbelievably fabulous parks. Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park, which is in the western end of the Upper Peninsula on Lake Superior, almost to Wisconsin, near the Apostle Islands, west of the Keweenaw Peninsula. It sticks up into Lake Superior. 43,000 acres of never cut trees, mostly sugar maple and hemlock beech. She got her organizations together and went to work, tried to get the DNR not to give a logging permit out. And in those days, money was important. And she put tremendous pressure. They all put tremendous pressure on the state not to give it up and to make sure they consolidated their holdings. And that's how it turned out. This is the biggest tract of virgin timber east of the Mississippi that's in a park, except perhaps the Adirondacks, although not all of that's virgin timber. And the other park that was so significant, probably her greatest contribution, is known as Sleeping Bear National Lakeshore, which, as you know, is a federal park. She began to know about Sleeping Bear really early in her career, again, because in those days it was private property and there were so many great natural features there. She was sent there frequently to study parts of it. And so she really became quite familiar with that place. And she was also interested in putting her oar in the water about the National Park Service study they were doing in the 60s about remaining opportunities for federal parks on the coastlines of the United States, with Michigan being the foreshore. And So she found out about their meetings and went to speak and tried to get them to pay particular attention to Sleeping Bear, and they did. The initial planning had the national park essentially encircling the Glen Lakes, and she was not happy about that plan. And she stood up and said, "You do not want the Glen Lakes in the national park, but you do want much more of the shoreline on Lake Michigan." She said, "You want to go from the other side of Good Harbor Bay all the way south 30 miles to the Platte River Valley. Throughout this entire stretch, you have this unbelievable sand dune assembly and terrific geological and biological values." She was invited by Senator Philip Hart to go to Washington to lobby. And so she lived with Phil Hart's, one of Phil Hart's assistants in Washington, and spent, I don't know, a winter or two, I think, down there, or at least large parts of it, going to the legislator, congressmen and senators, try to get them to be supportive of the national park idea. It really is spectacular, and it would have been condominium central. It would have been unbelievable development had it not become a national park. She never earned much, but she invested. She had a banker friend downtown Ann Arbor that she'd take $5,000 to every now and then. And so her estate, when it was all settled, came out to be $500,000 or so. What she wanted was that it be used to form the core of a purchase for a new park. The DNR Parks folks and the Nature Conservancy chapter in Michigan began to zero in on some possibilities. And one of them was south end of an old dolomite mining quarry, a place called Thompson's Harbor, which itself hadn't been mined, thankfully. It was really interesting dolomite cobblestone beach and dwarf lake iris and sandhill cranes. We decided on that, and that park became the core for Thompson's Harbor State Park, which is one of 3 really wonderful parks on Lake Huron. She just put her foot down about where and what needed to be done, and had the courage to follow through no matter what, and just unbelievable persistence. There isn't a better model for how to do things